Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Are we good? No music? There we go. I have to have music. It helps my rhythm as a television host.
Oh, music's very important.
All of our guests today, including Iain MacIntyre, standing by, sponsored by Passant Motors. Ready to find your next vehicle? Visit Passant Motors today to experience the difference for yourself. The friendly team looks forward to helping you drive home with the perfect vehicle for your needs and your budget. Your road to the perfect ride starts here. Passant Motors. Canucks over Nashville 4-2, Game 2 Tuesday, again at Rogers Arena. Here to talk about it from Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca, our friend Iain MacIntyre. Iain, thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm halfway downtown because there's an avail for the Nashville Predators at noon, followed by a Canucks practice at 12:30. So a busy day. So now you get to speak to me in my car. Brought to you by, do you have a car sponsor?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Passant Motors, we just mentioned.
Passant Motors.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Passant Motors.
There you go. Okay. Thank you for this, Iain, for taking. I know it's a busy day. It's a busy day for a lot of us, and we thank you so much. Hey, take us back a bit to the fall. What happened to Dakota Joshua being in Rick Tocchet's doghouse?
Yeah, it's remarkable how different players handle that kind of challenge differently, and it can go either way. We've seen that, but Dakota Joshua, and it's always to the player's credit when he kind of takes it to heart and is able to get past his own, pride and ego. And all these guys have that. You don't get to the National Hockey League without believing in yourself and having a pretty strong conviction that you know yourself best and what you need to do to be successful. But Dakota Joshua listened, and it was about, it wasn't about one thing. It was about, consistency and trying to be at his best every night, not, once in a while and then fading away. And he's been an entirely different player since then. But I have to say, and I think Tocchet mentioned this last night as well, since the coaching change, this staff has really believed in Dakota Joshua, because even last year, when Rick Tocchet took over, Joshua went from being, fourth liner, spare part, on the verge of being the 13th forward, to playing regularly because Rick Tocchet liked him. Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote, they saw something in Dakota Joshua. But I think the credit this year really goes to Joshua, because he's made himself basically an impact player. It's not easy to do that. It's hard enough to play in the league and get by without being, exposed. But he's now made himself an impact player. We've seen how that third line, mostly with Connor Garland and Teddy Bluger, now it's Elias Lindholm. We've seen them drive play really since mid-November, but it took them about a month before they started getting anything on the board. And they've been arguably the Canucks' most consistent line since then. Not their top line, because, at times the Miller line has gone really well. At times the Pettersson line goes, not so much lately though, but that Joshua Garland pairing has just been so consistent in driving play and getting key goals. And they certainly generated a couple last night.
Iain, we asked Elliot a question like this, Elliot Friedman, about an hour ago. But what do you?
Oh no, I can't possibly compare to Elliot. You're putting me on the spot already.
Yes,
you're setting me up to fail. Okay, go ahead.
We know that going in, but we accept it, Iain. No problem. In all seriousness, though.
Okay.
Rick Tocchet, what do you think he thinks of his big, somewhat mean-tempered defense core he's built up that he didn't have last year?
Well, I think he likes it, and this is all by design. And I don't know that they're necessarily mean-tempered. I mean, Zadorov, we know occasionally can go, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but not very often. right? Like he's and we saw that last night with Zadorov, the restraint he showed, because there were a couple of times he was upset at something, but he didn't take a penalty. I mean, the size of this defense and it is entirely by design. That's why it was, I don't want to say laughable, but it was so highly unlikely, when there were reports before the trade deadline that maybe the Canucks are going to move on from Zadorov. Maybe they're not happy with him and they'll try to cut their losses and get somebody else. I don't think that was ever in the cards, because the organization and I think Patrick Allvin especially deserves a lot of credit in this. They looked around the league. They saw the kind of defense that Vegas had last year when they won the Stanley Cup. They saw the size of the defense that Tampa had. The 2 years they won and other years that they're challenging. Before them, it was St. Louis, and they had some really big defensemen. It's not that you need necessarily to intimidate and physically punish guys. You need that size in front to stop the other team from easily getting to the front of your net, to, just boxing out and letting your goalie see the puck. And then, of course, when the puck and the opposition does get there, you have some heft to move them out of the way, to control the front of your net. So, Ian Cole is 225 pounds. Zadorov is 250. Tyler Myers is even thinner than I am, hard to believe. But, he's still 6'8", and I think he's about 240 pounds, maybe 235. And who am I? Oh, Carson Soucy, who's also not really heavy set per se, but he is 6'5". That's a big, strong bottom four for the other team to get through. And as good as the Canucks were, and as impressed as we were with that defense in the regular season, it has a chance to be even more impactful in the playoffs with the way playoff hockey is played and officiated.
Ian, you've covered some of the biggest games in franchise history. How was that atmosphere last night? The players were just raving about it post game.
Yeah, we were all talking, when I say we, us in the media, but before this series, about the inexperience of the Canucks and how would these new players handle it. Yeah. That atmosphere last night was so special that even veteran players were emotional. And JT Miller talked about it. Elias Lindholm, Tyler Myers as well. Some of the players in the warm-up, Zadorov during the anthem. It was an incredible atmosphere. And we've, you guys are from here too, and you've covered the team as long as I have. We've probably got a century between us, which is both impressive and disappointing. But we kind of, I think in some ways we take it for granted, because this is what we've been exposed to. But as I've said before, this may not be, well, it isn't so far the best season in Canucks history. It was one of the best regular seasons, but it wasn't the best season in Canucks history. That 2011 team was hands down the number one team in the NHL. They dominated in almost every category. But this season might be the most enjoyable in Canucks history to this point, because of what everybody endured the last 3 years, and because what was expected, what the expectations were for this team. And it's a team, I think, that has a lot of qualities that are easy for people to cheer for. And I think it's a group that really has reconnected with this fan base. And a 9-year wait, it was probably going to be loud last night no matter what. But that was a really special atmosphere. And that roar in the third period, it was when Joshua scored the second goal in 12 seconds. That was probably the loudest roar since Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final, which was a long time ago now.
All right, Ian, what's Taka going to preach today at practice? What's his team got to do better in Game 2?
Well, I think they need to get more pucks to the net. I thought the second half of the game was very good. The first half, it's not like it was terrible, and that's actually a trait that we've seen from the Canucks. Even when they're not on their game, they're not terrible because they've raised the floor so much. But they need to get more, obviously, than 4 shots on net in the first period. I think he's going to talk to them about discipline, because in the end, the lone power play goal of the game that was scored by Nashville didn't decide the game. But taking 3 penalties in 6.5 minutes, that's not a recipe for success. But I think there's going to be a lot of positive reinforcement. I think there's a lot more to reinforce about that game that was good than things to correct that they didn't like. And I think the best thing, and I wrote about this for Sportsnet.ca, the best thing is that when the team was down early, and you think of all the pressure, the atmosphere that we just talked about, the weight, the expectations, all of that going into it. And then the Canucks are down 1-0 in the first period. They're still down 2-1 in the third. And yet they continued just to play the way that they have all season. Adam Foote told me before the playoffs, the biggest challenge in the playoffs is to, when these waves are coming, and that's how Foote described it, these waves, right? And it feels like you're riding these ebbs and flows on emotion, so high and so low within a game. He said, the waves are never as big as you think they are if you can remain calm. And the challenge is to try to do simply the things that have made you successful all year, to play to your strengths and play your game and just try to play the way that you have all season. The challenge is to do that when every instinct tells you in playoff hockey, oh my goodness, look how different this is. I got to do things differently. And the most impressive thing about the Canucks last night was the moment wasn't too big for them. They didn't lose composure. They didn't try to press and stray from the things that made them successful. They just kept playing the way that we've seen them play all season. And when they were down 2-1 in the third, they were calm. They played their best hockey. They got 2 goals. They won the game. That's an incredibly powerful learning tool to reinforce for a group where half the lineup had never played a real playoff game in front of fans.
I'm calling it a tie between you and Elliot. Although you did bring up Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so I'll give you that. But we're calling it a draw. We can't thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I've been winless. I'm still winless, but at least the losing streak is over.
It's always a victory when you visit our show, Ian. Get to the arena.
I will. Thank you, guys.